A leftist California law has officially nuked leftist journalism from orbit. Vox Media to cut hundreds of freelance jobs ahead of changes in California gig economy laws. It was a bill called, it's Assembly Bill number 5, and it limited the amount of work someone could do as a freelancer. It was pushed for by labor unions, and it effectively means all of these freelance writers, which is the overwhelming majority of people who write, at least to my understanding, having worked for these companies, you're gone if you're in California. But you want to know why this is so bittersweet? You want to know why conservatives are going to be doing a jig and dancing around and laughing in glee with Schadenfreude all about? Here's what Vox wrote in September. Gig workers win in California is a victory for workers everywhere. Is it really? What about the hundreds you just terminated who can't stop crying? And I'll get to that in a second. Yes, they're crying. AB 5's passage, which Governor Gavin Newsom is expected to sign, he did, could easily be seen as just another progressive victory. Is a progressive victory terminating hundreds or thousands of jobs? This is just Vox. Think about every company, Vice, BuzzFeed, they got to get rid of all of their freelancers. It's not going to be hundreds of jobs. It's going to be thousands of media jobs gone overnight. That's a progressive victory. Well, if you ask Ocasio-Cortez, it absolutely is, because over in New York, she cost her city and state 25,000 jobs, potentially 40, according to Governor Cuomo. I believe he said it was 25 to 40,000 over 10 years. She tries to downplay it. No, they're coming back. They're bringing back 1,500 jobs. You see, this is the problem with what I refer to as, it's called the Chinese finger trap problem. That's what I call it. Because when you understand how the concept of a Chinese finger trap works. Your fingers are stuck, so you try and pull as hard as you can, and it makes it worse. You have to do something slightly counterintuitive to your first presumptions in order to actually escape. What we end up seeing are these leftists saying, hey, companies aren't paying their employees enough and they keep hiring freelancers. Got an idea. Let's make it so they can't hire freelancers more than 35 times per year. That way they'll be forced to hire the freelancers, right? It all makes sense. This is a progressive victory, they say. In reality, it's very different. In reality, they say, well, we can't hire all these people. Just fire all these people. We'll save money and we'll figure it out somewhere else. Or better yet, they're going to hire freelancers in different states. So bravo. Now, well, I want to read the CNBC story, but first, I want to provide some sympathy and empathy to the writers who had nothing to do with this, who have been negatively impacted. This is a tweet from a woman named Andy Loveall. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. That's what it says. Only a few thousand followers. She's an author and a writer. And she wrote, just lost my ability to earn a living because of California Assembly Bill number 5. My freelance brokerage company says they have to let California authors go. Almost a decade of hard work gone in an instant. I can't stop crying. Right before Christmas. Man, I'm sorry that happened to you, Andy. I really do mean that. I empathize. You know, for the past, I missed 3 days. The first time in 3 years I produced content every single day. I have increased my workload every step of the way, and I lost my voice. I couldn't work, and I tell you what, man, it was torture. Sitting around not being able to do anything was a nightmare for me, nightmarish. And I can only imagine for people in California who every day wake up saying, what can I write about? What can I talk about? Now being told their jobs are being terminated because of some, pro-union law that makes it so they can't hire freelancers. To me, that's unacceptable. It's crazy to me. You have completely legal content, completely acceptable content, and they're telling you you're not allowed to sell your labor. That to me is nuts, but that's socialism. Under socialism, you don't choose where your labor goes. They regulate that stuff. I know because I've seen it. Now, they'll argue that's not real socialism. Just stop. Not real socialism. Don't care. Matthew Keys says, what type of content did you write? Andy said a variety of ghostwriting, text broker, blogs, articles, travel stuff, landing pages. This is not some woke rage bait author. This is just a freelance writer who does travel articles, landing pages, ghostwriting. There are people who do translations. Gone. How insane. And this is why, when you get leadership that says, I'm just going to take the path of least resistance, whatever you say, I'm not going to sit and think about it. This is what you get. This is what you get. You get people like Andy just before Christmas losing their jobs. That to me is absurd and it's wrong. Now, of course, Andy could leave California, But how insane is that? First, you got to realize freelance writers don't make all that money. They don't make a ton of money, okay? And so it's funny when I hear people, I've talked to people at the Electoral College, and I'm like, you understand that when you have a system where the majority can oppress the minority, you end up with conflict and chaos, right? A good example is how there are certain parts of California that during the drought had their surface water voted away from them, okay? The big cities voted and they took it. And I'm like, that's why you need protections for the minority. That's why we have a republic, not a direct democracy. Otherwise, you end up being oppressed. And people always said to me, well, they can just move. I'm like, no, they can't. You can't just leave your home. When the state says, you know what, more people in that city have voted to take away your resources, what are you going to do? You got no resources. Abandon your home, get in your car. Yeah, you might die without water. So now you have people like Andy. The rug was pulled out from underneath them. Many people didn't even see this coming. Now, of course, what we're seeing from Vox, I got to say, I have a little bit less sympathy for, but actually, I take that back. Vox is a major corporation funded by NBC. They have no problem terminating freelancers and saying, I don't care. So they get these writers who cheer. Woo! They say, by making it hard for employers to misclassify employees as independent contractors, potentially millions of California workers who've been kept off payrolls will get basic labor rights for the first time. Boy, who could have seen this coming? I explain this all the time, right? I'll give you another example of how the left approaches lawmaking, or they tend to. And I'm not saying the Republicans don't do this. Like, no, I've said that all the time, because no matter what, I'm like, hey, look, the left did something bad. And they're like, you're saying the right did something good. No, I'm not. But I will tell you this. In the UK, they pass a law. You gotta have, anybody of any gender identity can use whatever facility they want. The assumption from the leftists is, you have two beautiful bathrooms, men and women, and people just go in whichever one they think is appropriate. In reality, many changing rooms and shower rooms, pools just said, we'll just make it all unisex. And guess what happened? Assaults went up. It was Financial Times. I believe it actually may have been the Telegraph reporting that their data tracking showed that assaults had gone up by a decent percentage because now you had cis hetero men and women together. And guess what? Yeah, it will increase the likelihood. I mean, it's simple arithmetic. They didn't think that was going to be the case. They thought they would have this utopian, hey, we'll pass this law and then everyone can use whatever bathroom. No, because the businesses just say, why deal with that? Just make one bathroom. And there you go. Now in the US, a lot of what people are doing is, just single-use rooms. I don't want to get into the whole bathroom debate thing, but it's a good example in a long line of policies enacted by the left where they're like, look what Vox literally writes. Now people are going to get basic labor rights. And then, bam, 3 months later, Vox Media to cut hundreds of jobs. Wow. This California law nuked lefty journalism from orbit. Okay, you got to understand this. Many of these woke leftists live in California. Not all of them, a lot of them. And now they can't work anymore. So what's going to happen to all of these news outlets? I mean, they're in New York too. So they're going to move maybe, or they're out. They're out of work. CNBC reports hundreds of freelance writers at Vox Media, primarily those covering sports for SB Nation, will lose their jobs in the coming months as the company prepares for a California law to go into effect that will force companies to reclassify contractors in the state as employees. This is a bittersweet note of thanks to our California independent contractors. John Ness, executive director of SB Nation, wrote in a post on Monday, in 2020, we will move California's team blogs from our established system with hundreds of contractors to a new one run by a team of new SB Nation employees. You know what they literally said? We need these jobs filled. If you're in California, you're fired. We're going to rehire, because the jobs aren't going anywhere, other people. Think about that for a second. This is not a case of being told your company can't support you. I'm sorry, we have to let you go. It's not a case of Vox going out of business. It's literally Vox saying, you guys passed the law, I got to fire you, but this dude over here in Arizona, he's all good. He's hired. He gets your job now. California is, as many people have said, California is a failed state for a lot of reasons. I tell you what, this is one of them. I know where these policies lead. The left doesn't know when to stop. That's the biggest problem I have with the left. Well, it's not, but it's one of them. They never settle. It's never good enough. The minimum wage always has to be higher and higher and higher. Now, I get it. In many ways, a minimum wage makes sense. Yes, it does. Like when you have a local economy increase the base rate, and now they can afford imports from other countries and other regions because the base rate there didn't change. It's complicated. It's always complicated. That's apparently my new catchphrase. But I say that because a lot of people will assume I'm trying to make a black and white statement. No, I'm saying generally, right? What you end up with on the left is like Rashida Tlaib. We want $15 an hour. And then once they won, she goes, $20 an hour. It's like, okay, you're just never going to stop. At a certain point, there should be a tax rate that's enough. At a certain point, there should be a revenue stream that's enough. At a certain point, there should be government programs that are enough. And I understand inflation, so we can tack inflation into these expanding programs. But the problem with the left, the right doesn't have, is that they win something and then immediately demand more. More. It never ends. And you get this. They couldn't be happy with those jobs. So they pass more laws and more regulations. And it gets worse and worse and worse. I'll give you another example of what my problem with the left. See, I stop just center left on the political compass. You know why I don't go any further? Because I recognize, hey, we found a nice little happy spot, right? The way I see it with these government programs, they say, oh, we've got homeless people. Let's create a program for the homeless. Yes, I agree. I actually work for some nonprofits helping homeless people. No problem. But they don't stop there. When the program encounters problems and becomes bloated and needs to be cleaned up, restarted, they say, just do more. The way I've always explained it is, Los Angeles has a wound. That wound is the homeless crisis. They put a Band-Aid on that wound. That's fine, okay? A Band-Aid is there to help the healing process. But California then just leaves the Band-Aid on and says, we did it, everybody, and the wound festers because the bandage gets dirty and grimy. So you know what California does? Slap another Band-Aid right on top. We got a festering wound? Put a bigger Band-Aid on it. And they keep dumping money because they don't understand they're going too far. You need to stop. You need to reassess. The pendulum's got to swing back. You got to clean house and then restart these programs or clean them up, fix the corruption, fix the bloat, fix the buildings. Reassess. Are you still helping people? You look at Ocasio-Cortez and she says, I want to be the party of the Green New Deal. Hold on. Hold on. She wants to be the party of, Eisenhower, the New Deal, whatever. Or was that FDR? Sorry. And one of them, man, I'm terrible. I'm going to get flack for that. But she wants to be the party of the New Deal. And she wants to bring back the New Deal with the Green New Deal. Dude, that was a solution to a problem over 100 years or about 100 years ago. How does that make sense? Andrew Yang is smart. He looks at this and he says, minimum wage isn't going to solve this problem. Thank you, sir. He's actually progressive. You look at the progressives and they're like, let's use regressive laws from a century ago to try and solve this problem. How does that make sense? It doesn't. Do you know why there's a flourishing freelance gig economy? Because of the internet. Because this is how a libertarian market system works. People choose to sell their labor, supply and demand. So California says, we got to stop all this. We can't have this supply and demand stuff positively impacting our state, bringing in money from other places. Check this out. The writers in California, they're getting paid by New York-based companies, by Atlanta-based companies. That was money from Atlanta being sent to California and spent in the local economy. They said, let's nuke that from orbit and get rid of it. I can't tell you why, but I can tell you this. Conservatives pounce. I love that one. Whenever something crazy happens and the left screws up, they always write that conservatives pounce. That's the joke. Blaze picks up the story. Vox Media fires hundreds of freelance writers over California gig economy law, and they're tweeting angrily about it. There are a lot of lefty Vox types, progressives, that are for these laws and cheered for them until they realized it meant the end of their careers, and you reap what you sow. But there are some people who write travel blogs, ghostwriting, people like this Andy woman who have nothing to do with the politics of this insanity. Now, she very well may be a progressive. I have no idea. The point is, she says she just a text broker, blogs, articles, travel stuff, landing pages. That's the majority of what this writing stuff is. The majority of the freelance work, it could be like translating, transcribing. It's going to be an article like, have you ever wondered what a souffle in Sydney, Australia tastes like? Come check it out. Really simple stuff, apolitical. That's the majority of it. And we're talking about SB Nation. Whatever, I don't know if it's woke or whatever, I don't care. The point is, not everybody being hit by this is the person who caused it. But the people who caused it cheered it on. Vox cheered for this. Don't forget it. They said it was a progressive win. I want you all to remember that the people who are claiming to be progressives are regressive. They're claiming it's a progressive victory to destroy jobs. Are you insane? But I'll tell you what, man. I've been to Venezuela. I've seen what it's like when you have the government step in to mandate jobs. It took me like 2 or 3 hours to buy a cell phone because they have to create jobs by force. So here's what happened. This is my understanding. This is what I was told by a local. Here's what I can tell you what happened when I went to a cell phone store. I went to one person, filled out a form. Then I went to another person, handed them the form. Then I went to another person. Each individual tiny aspect of the phone had a job. The person to show you the catalog of phones. Then you bring your slip to the person who goes to the back room to get the phone. Then you bring that phone to the salesman to talk about the plans. Then he gives you a slip with the plan you've chosen, and you bring it to the plan activation man, who then turns on who then activates the plan for your phone, and then tells you to wait while his buddy goes and does the SIM card for him. Every minute step of the process, they mandated the creation of that job. And it made the process sluggish and slow, and it jams up the economy. It makes things take too long. People weren't facilitating trade. And this is what you get with these policies. You know what's funny to me? I always try to explain to these socialists, they're liars, by the way, okay? Or they're really dumb. Under socialism, you have no right to freely trade your labor. And they lie to you. They say this: under capitalism, labor is exploited and you can't sell your labor. No, that's literally what capitalism is. Now, hold on. The biggest criticism they have with capitalism is that you can use money to make money. Yeah, too bad. That's called a trade resource. Now, I personally am not a fan of people who get rich simply because they're rich. It's like that. There's that joke. I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Chris Rock. So they were like, if you're rich, the bank says, thank you for being rich, and gives you more money. And if you're poor, they charge you money for being poor. It's insane. I think so. But I also recognize it's the product of a trade medium existing. You see, even under a socialist system, you can hoard currency. So a lot of socialist systems do have some type of currency, be it a certificate or some kind of credit system. Just because it's socialist doesn't mean they don't use money to trade. It just means they tell you what you can or can't do for the most part. And a lot of like you look at China and they use currency, right? You can still manipulate currency no matter what. So the only true socialist or communist system can't have money in it. And therein lies the big problem. Then no one can do anything, no one can trade, and you're literally getting rid of a tool. But I tell you what, in a free market system, you choose. I believe laissez-faire capitalism is not good because you will get exploitation to an extreme degree. Corruption and exploitation will exist under any system. How do we minimize that? It's called a mixed economy, and it's called regulation. That's why I think the United States has done a pretty good job of it. And a lot of people are upset saying, I didn't vote for these taxes, it's not fair. Well, vote for the guy who's going to lower your taxes. And they did. Donald Trump, middle-class tax cuts. Basically, everybody got a tax cut. Corporate tax cuts, profits are up, everything's up. Great. That's what you voted for. You get what you want. And it might change. People might say later they want more taxes. I don't know. The point is, balance. A shift a little back and forth. Don't let one get carried away. California is a runaway state. There is no more balance to what they're doing. There's, I can't remember who said this, a famous philosopher, something about if you're in a room where everyone agrees, you'll be unable to actually see the problems. And you need someone to push back and say, I disagree and here's why, and challenge the main, the official perspective. This is the idea of diversity, not someone's skin color, but worldview. When people used to talk about diversity, it was supposed to be like, yeah, if a dude from India came here, he's gonna see things in a very different way. It's not about the race. It's about other parts of the world, different problems. But the left has conflated all of it to just mean like, you're a different color, therefore diversity. Actually, no, I take that back. Now they're like, for some reason, if you're just not white, a group of all Indian people is called diverse or something. Or like, it was like with Black Panther, they called it a diverse cast when it was literally the opposite of diversity. It was like a predominantly black cast. And if you want to have a movie like Black Panther, I'm totally fine with that. That's like, more power to you. I don't care. But anyway, I don't want to get derailed. The point is, and actually I should wrap this up. California has no diversity. They pretend to because it's superficial. It's all surface level. Their policies, the way they view the world, it's all surface level. You got a mix of, white, Asian, Latino, black, whatever, there, diversity. And no one actually has real diversity of thought. What happens? The Democratic supermajority in most of these cities pass laws that result in rampant homelessness, drug problems, human waste all over the streets. There was a photo going viral of a guy taking a dump in a supermarket. I tell you what, man, I don't know how anybody would want to live in California, except for the weather. I'll tell you, man, it's great to go chill on the beach. You never got to worry about rain, especially in the drought. You don't got to worry about the cold. Yeah, it gets a little hot, but, San Diego's usually perfect. A little humid, though. They get that fog rolling in the mornings. Other than that, what does California have to offer other than it's a runaway political system that no one can challenge? Because they don't care. When you have a shared culture and set of morals and community, you can trust the other person. This prevents corruption, people not wanting to slight each other. But over time, when the community breaks down, people have no problem exploiting the other person to get what they want. That's California. California is the epitome of a runaway, cultureless, Wild West system where people started, it's like originally California was very libertarian. But over time, people realized a path to power was government and a path to power was crony capitalist processes where they could become, the ivory tower elite sitting in their mansions up in the Hollywood Hills, dumping money on people who will strengthen their ivory tower club. That's what California is. It's a runaway system. It's a system where everybody just wants to get rich. They want to take and take and take. And that's why, there you go. I'm going to leave it there. This is a long video. California, they nuked these jobs from orbit. And you know what? To the people in California, you keep voting for this. What are you going to do? And you know what happens? They move out. They move to Texas. They move to Colorado and Arizona. And they vote for the same thing. So you know what? You reap what you sow, man. I'll see you all at 1 p.m. on this channel in the next video. Thanks for hanging out.